Former BBC employee finally breaks silence. Oh, that's a hot topic. Let's have a look.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters.
Wa alaikum salam wa
I hope you're
rahmatullahi wa
well.
barakatuh.
Headline
Alhamdulillah.
alert: while news channel frequently broadcast breaking items like newsflash, this politician got exposed for breaking news. This famous celebrity got unmasked. We hardly ever see headlines like newsflash. A news agency got exposed. This is because journalists are supposed to expose lies and deceit so that the public can know the truth.
But
But
they
it
do the
seems like this
opposite
position
sometimes.
has been fundamentally twisted, specifically since the past year. A clip is being widely shared among netizens and has gotten viral where the wicked tactics
Like, the thing about journalism is, like, let me tell you the dirty truth, okay? This is a business as well. And how do you make a lot of money as a journalist? By selling stuff to the people that can make it to headline and go viral. Like, oh, this and this scandal, this and this problem. And it doesn't even matter if it's true or not true, or if there's just a 50% chance, or if it's lower than that. If it's a topic that can go viral and hit headlines, like, this is a lot of money for journalists, right? So, of course, they don't always tell the truth. They sometimes will use rumors to make money out of them, right? Or so-and-so said this, but it's actually the opposite. Like, it is not all honesty. It's about what goes more viral, what makes it to the headlines, like what brings the most attention to us and our company and this and that. Like, you will sometimes see like news channels make the most ridiculous claims, even if you have evidence against it, but just because this is a topic that would bring in a lot of views for them, right? So a lot of views means, of course, a lot of money, like a lot of attention.
netizens and has gotten viral
So
where the
yeah, don't
wicked
always trust them. They are
tactics
business
of
too, you
BBC are being exposed.
That was the editorial line that was drilled into us, into all of our coverage. It was really an integral part of the editorial stance. To a guest talking about, Israeli airstrikes killing Palestinians in Gaza, that would be the response from our presenters.
Denying access to food is collective punishment, and that we should all be clear in saying that.
Israel will argue, obviously, that it has a right to defend itself.
People were terrified of using the word genocide in coverage. They still are. You will very rarely see it in any BBC coverage. And if an interviewee says the word genocide,
this is a genocide happening in front of our eyes.
That word is, as you know, incredibly emotive, and the Israelis, as you know, will be saying that they are targeting Hamas only.
the presenter will almost always panic.
The Labour Party, of all political parties, which has always had a strong peace contingent within it, is now actually supporting genocide.
Okay, if we can maybe just avoid that language, if that's okay.
Here again, they always try to get out of this topic. You know why? Like, do you know what I think? And I have to do more research, because right now that's just a claim and I have to yet prove it. Maybe one of you guys know this, but I wouldn't be surprised if BBC is actually funded either directly or indirectly by Israel at some point, right? And they are like sponsoring them in a way. Maybe behind the scenes, like, money was being sent. Who knows? Like, who are the ones actually funding BBC? Like, there could be like some sort of, like, because that's the thing with, like, even some, I've seen this with some content creators that are actually really, really funded, like, at least indirectly by Israel, where they don't want to talk about this, right? Or if they have like a large following in a certain country, they don't want to talk about it, even though they feel this way too, like, oh, there's genocide happening, right? And there's clear evidence. We saw many clips, and now there's this ICC arrest warrant for Netanyahu. Like, you can no longer hide the genocide. The genocide has become a legal matter even here, because why else is Shaitanyahu wanted? Because there's evidence for Shaitanyahu, okay? So now they can no longer disagree with the word genocide, because it has become a legal matter. Now they can say genocide as much as they want, even if they are funded by those people, because, listen, the UK is part of the ICC.
It is now actually supporting genocide.
Okay, if we can maybe just avoid that language, if that's okay.
As shown in this clip, a BBC journalist with inside knowledge of the organization is disclosing its inner workings and how, following October 7, 2023, they and other presenters and reporters received strict instructions on how to respond to
But yeah, who
specific
funds
inquiries
them?
and what to say whenever they're brought up with the Palestinian
Sponsors
deaths.
them.
She disclosed that BBC correspondents were told to either portray it as an act of Israeli self-defense or highlight the violence of October 7 in response to any inquiries or expressions of compassion for the Palestinians. She added that if any of the show's guests even attempted to criticize Israel or use harsh words against its actions, the host would instantly become alarmed and attempt to control the conversation, which would change the course of the current dialogue.
Yeah, it makes
She
it not
further
authentic
disclosed
as well.
that the BBC hosts were instructed.
Like the thing is like, okay, like imagine you are a person that's getting interviewed somewhere, right? And then the person that interviews you at first asks questions that they expect you to answer truthfully and with all honesty, right? And then you answer everything with all honesty and truth. And then in the middle of the conversation, they come to you and say, you can't say this, you can't say that. Then you feel like, oh, okay, so you don't want my honest answers. You don't actually want my real thoughts. You want the thoughts that you want me to share with you and not like the uncensored version, the truth, okay? So this no longer feels like a genuine interview. For me, a genuine interview with a person, asking them questions, it has to be honest and genuine and not like, oh, I give the rules of what you can answer. Because then why do you ask the question? Like, I'm gonna be honest, okay? If someone came to me right now, and I don't care if they are famous TV channels, I don't give a crap. I don't give a crap at all. If they came to me and they asked me honest questions, and in this conversation they say, oh, you can't answer this, you can't say that, then I will tell them directly straight to their face, and I don't care if this is disrespectful, I will say, are you here the person that's asking me questions, or am I going to ask you questions here? Who is asking who questions? So you want my answer or you don't want my answer. I'm not going to lie to your face. Either you come to me for questions and I have the right to answer the way I want them, or you go away because I don't want to speak with you if you're the one telling me what I can say and what I can not say. That's how I would respond. Because is that going to be a genuine, truthful interview if they can dictate everything I can answer? This is so fake then. This is like they have the script of what I say. It's like giving indirectly a script to a person that you're asking. Oh, you can only say this, you must talk about this. Like, it doesn't feel genuine, the interview. It feels so scripted. Even though it's not scripted, it feels like it's scripted.
Disclosed that the BBC hosts
I don't like those kind
were
of
instructed
interviews.
to take a totally
Not fun.
different attitude to Israeli guests than to Palestinian guests, with the Israelis being able to tell any falsehood without being confronted, while the Palestinian guests will be treated sternly, and the opening question to all of them will be a common one, which is, do you condemn October the 7th?
It was overwhelmingly guests on the Palestinian side of things who were being looked into. Palestinians being flagged up for using the word Zionist, which isn't something to flag necessarily. Even the occasional NGO was thrown in, for example, Human Rights Watch. These are organizations that we've really relied on in terms of covering Ukraine and various other conflicts. And now and again, they would check an Israeli guest. But there was no balance in what was going on. Israeli spokespeople who we did have on were given a lot of free rein to say whatever they wanted,
But not
with
the other
very
way
little
around.
pushback.
Babies were set on fire. Babies were shot in the head.
Whereas any Palestinian guest was asked to condemn Hamas.
But I want to ask you specifically about Hamas's actions today. Do you support them?
Almost as though condemning
Wow.
Hamas was the sort of price to pay before they could be humanized in our coverage. Many of our own presenters, when faced with an interviewee who was Palestinian or who had lost family in Gaza, there was just such a lack of compassion.
I'm sorry for your own personal loss. I mean, can I just be clear, though? You cannot condone the killing of civilians in Israel, can you?
As a result, a number of producers were really reticent about putting a vulnerable Palestinian guest in front of a BBC presenter.
This is the reality for media outlets such as the BBC, CNN, and Sky News. Previously,
like I said, those are all businesses. Like, what do you expect? Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. If you're looking for actual, true, footage, true information, this and that, you have to look this up on Google manually. Like these days, if you look at like most news outlets, and especially the big ones, they are funded by third parties and stuff. Like they have sponsorships, they have this and that going on, and certain people that spend a lot of money into those news outlets, right? They have certain rules and certain views on the world, and that they're trying to also force them to follow. Why? Because they're the ones funding them, right? So it's like they bought themselves into the company, and they have like the last word with whatever they release or talk about. So I'm not surprised that they say stuff like, oh, you can talk about the word genocide, about this and that, because whoever's behind the scenes putting all the money, sponsorship, and running the news outlets and stuff, if they have a certain worldview, they are like, let's say, pro-Israel, they're directly from Israel or indirectly from Israel or whatever, like, they know if they don't follow them, they no longer get the sponsorship and funding. They're going to pull back, right? And then they're going to lose a lot of money. Like I said, everything is like monetized when it comes to journalism, right? Like there isn't actually free journalism in the world, because if there was free journalism, nobody would want to do the job, because who wants to spend 40, 50 plus hours a week in collecting information to talk about footages, interviews? Nobody would do this for free. They expect a payment, because it's a lot of time that they spend into this business, because it's a work, it's a regular job like everyone else. Like, it's like a 9-to-5 job, you could say, right? Pretty much. Sometimes it could even be more. I've heard like stories about some people working 10 plus hours as journalists. It depends on also which country. So they want the payment, and whoever pays the most has the control over those sort of companies, right? And they will, of course, go for topics that can go trending and hit headlines, and it's all in the news. Everyone talks about it, watches this, millions of views for that, billions of views, because it's money. So they will sometimes lie to get attention because they want the money. It's a business.
BBC, CNN, and Sky News. Previously, viewers have accused them of their stance on Palestine and devotion to Israel. Sky News was even accused of removing a live feed and then editing it, since the original showed strong evidence of Israelis causing havoc and mayhem in Amsterdam. What is the most interesting thing out of this is that the unmasking of the BBC was because of an investigation of another media house, the Al Jazeera. It is working tirelessly and continuously to show the ground reality of Gaza and Palestine, while simultaneously exposing the hidden lies and treacheries of the sold-out leading media houses. This is the same reason why the entire nation of Israel is scared of a media house. You will never hear that Israel targeted and accused a BBC, CNN, or Sky News reporter of being an extremist working for an extremist organization. But these allegations targeting are only directed at journalists from Al Jazeera and other media outlets who provide ground truth from Gaza and Palestine. Israel is scared of the truth, which is why it has launched a war on it. Journalists who stand up for the truth face inconceivable hardships, but others, such as the reporters of BBC, have sold themselves to the lies and are bootlicking the wrongdoers, relaxing peacefully on cushioned sofas, living a life of luxury. In these deceptive media channels, there are very few who still stand up for the truth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the lies and treachery. Ameen.
Ameen. I mean, what do you expect? Like, media outlets, they're the puppets of either directly of the government, because the government can just shut them down if they are not in line with their political move right now, right? Like, if let's say a government is pro-Israel and you as a news outlet, you want to be as neutral as possible, right? You can't be that because the government will shut you down. Okay, let me give you a actually good example. So have you seen like what happened in Russia? And now you could say, oh, but Russia is a dictatorship. It's not a democracy in the West. Let me tell you something. True democracy doesn't exist. If you say what they don't want you to say, you can still get fined, or they will come up with some case against you. You grabbed someone the wrong way 20 plus years ago, and now you have a lawsuit or something. Like, they will try to dig up dirt to get you behind bars if you speak the truth, if it's not in line what they say, and you have enough reach and you are enough famous to speak. I mean, there are like recently some cases happening against certain individuals and famous people, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is being done to just shut them down because they speak the truth and people started listening to them. So we have to be very careful with that, right? So they're either those news outlets in line with the government and they have to follow their political direction right now, otherwise they risk being shut down. Just like in Russia, many news outlets were shut down by Putin because they spoke negative about the conflict in Ukraine, right? So you see there is a certain level that the government has on news outlets, right? And then there's another factor that some of those news outlets, they could be funded by abroad or by someone that's maybe, let's say, a super rich guy that has maybe the citizenship of that country, but that is in direct connection with Israel, or that person gets money from Israel, and then that person gives money to the news outlet. So it's like by a third person, basically, right? And then they have to have a certain stance on certain things, and that's how you get those interviews where it's being dictated what you can answer or not, and they only talk about certain topics and not about others, because they're in control, they're just puppets, and somebody else is pulling the strings behind the scenes, right? So yeah, but here they got exposed because one person didn't want to take it any longer. And there are some genuine journalists, like I'm not trying to hate on journalists, there are some good ones. If you look at Al Jazeera, they seem more truthful these days than most other news outlets, right? And they have like a bit more neutral stance on some things, right? But you can see that some journalists actually enter the job because they actually want to report the truth and actually do discover certain things and they want to share it, but then they're being forbidden of sharing them and they can't have their own opinion anymore, and they get upset and then they speak out and expose them, right? I'm not surprised at this. But yo, this was a very, very good video, and yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And if you guys are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content. If you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this one a thumbs up. And I will see you guys next time, inshallah.